This is the Toyota Hilux, the very first Toyota on the channel actually. And the one thing I don't like about it is arguably the reason why this is South Africa's best-selling Bakkie of all time. We'll unpack that statement later in the video, but for now, we've got the mid-spec 2.8 GD-6 Raider, and I'm gonna tell you everything you need to know about its practicality, its features. I'm gonna take it on the road and tell you how it feels dynamically, and then tell you what it'll cost to own one. So without further ado, let's get into this review. Car Talks. Power, precision, performance. First things first, Happy New Year everybody, and I hope that everyone is feeling well rested and ready to tackle the year ahead. I mean, I've already noticed some of the day one gang in the new year going back and commenting on some of the older channel videos from last year, so I'm happy that you're all alive and well. Moving on to the reason that brings us all here today is the Toyota Hilux in Raider trim. The 8th generation Hilux has had 3 facelifts in total, and this is facelift number 2 of 3. So it still gets the chrome trim around the grille, side mirrors and door handles, unlike the latest facelift, which gets a more understated front end. Under the bonnet is a 2.8-litre inline 4-cylinder turbo diesel engine that produces 150 kilowatts and 500 newton meters of torque. And because this is the 4x2 variant, it sends all of its power to the rear wheels only via a 6-speed automatic gearbox. Hence the GD-6, which stands for Global Diesel, and the 6 basically denotes that the gearbox is a 6-speed. The manual option is only available in the 2.4-litre variant, which only gets 110 kilowatts and 400 newton meters of torque, and comes fitted with halogen headlamps instead. It weighs between 2.1 and 2.3 tons, depending on how you spec it, and will do the 0 to 100 km/h sprint in a claimed 10 seconds. The top spec GR Sport shaves that time by only 0.2 seconds at 9.8 seconds, thanks to the minute 15 kilowatt power bump. For the price tag of the GR Sport, I would have expected a significant power bump over the Raider and Legend because 15 kilowatts is not life-changing in the real world. So when it comes to acceleration alone, you're probably not going to notice which model you're in. The sitting position of the Hilux is majestic as you sit quite high while overlooking traffic, thanks to its ground clearance of 286 millimeters. So it sits higher than the Ford Ranger XLT, which has a ground clearance of only 237 millimeters. But then again, the water wading depth of the Hilux is only 700 millimeters, which is less than the 800 millimeters you get in the Ranger. Fun fact, this unit is not from Toyota South Africa, but it does belong to my parents, and they've been kind enough to lend it to me for this review. But hopefully we can work with Toyota this year. The 4x2 configuration caters to their needs because this vehicle has spent 99% of its life in the city thus far, with the occasional visit to the rural areas of course. So my parents just needed something with decent ground clearance, and the 4x2 gives them just that. Now, if it were the 4x4 variant, then I would have probably taken it to Henops and given it a proper off-road beating like we did with the Ford Ranger. But there's honestly no need for that on this one because it's already a foregone conclusion that it's not going to be as capable. Overall, the ride is comfortable both on the highway and in the city, and the Hilux deals with the potholes in Johannesburg with ease, thanks to its Dunlop all-terrain tires that are sitting on 17-inch alloy wheels. The one thing that'll take some getting used to if you don't habitually drive Bakkies is the sheer size because the Hilux measures over 5.3 meters in length. So it's basically identical to the Ford Ranger and the VW Amarok in length, and that means that your garage is going to be full to the brim when these bad boys are inside of it. The turning circle is pretty wide as well, and I don't have it on camera unfortunately, but I did make a U-turn at some point, which turned into a 3-point turn instead. But then again, it's all the same across this segment really, so it's not a Toyota issue singularly. But once you get accustomed to the dimensions and the driving philosophy of Bakkies, you become addicted to the way that it drives and bounces about. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that the one thing I don't like about the Hilux is probably the same reason why it's South Africa's best-selling Bakkie of all time. And that reason is the lack of technological advancement. I mean, the dashboard layout looks like it belongs in 2005, especially when compared with seemingly more upmarket competitors in this segment. Even the latest Legend 55 that launched at the end of last year still has the exact same interior. The rear passengers are not treated to any air vents or USB ports, which I believe is something they would actually appreciate on a long-distance journey. And similarly, the load bed has no 12-volt sockets or plugs in place as you would get from the competition. But having said all of that, I think this is all intentional from Toyota because Toyota understands that the first components to go out as a vehicle ages are the electronics. And all of a sudden, your fancy electrically folding mirrors are not folding anymore, for instance, and then it's all downhill from there. So Toyota's formula is to keep things as simple as possible. I was actually having a conversation with my dad about potentially trading in the Hilux for a Ford Ranger Wildtrak V6 or even the Platinum. And I said, look, the Ford Ranger is probably going to give you a more pleasurable experience because it has all of the bells and whistles that you would expect from a modern passenger car. But the Hilux will probably outlive the both of us, and Ford can never match that reliability in its current state. I bumped into my grade 1 teacher about a year or two ago, and she's retired now, but she's still driving the same blue Toyota Corolla that she drove back when I was still in grade 1. So it's pretty common to see an Afrikaans Tannie driving her Toyota from the 90s and early 2000s, still with its original engine and gearbox, by the way. And that's the ethos of Toyota, a tried and tested product that you can pass down 3 generations. So I believe that the lack of tech gizmos is all the more reason why this recipe works so well from a reliability standpoint, which is why this is the most popular Bakkie of all time in South Africa. But that popularity does have its drawbacks as well in terms of crime, so you can expect to pay a little bit more for insurance than you would any other Bakkie. Now, the all-new Hilux will be making its way to South Africa later this year, of course, and although I'm not too enthusiastic when it comes to its exterior looks, but I do certainly welcome the updated interior because aesthetically it looks on par with the competition. Well, at least from photos anyway. But do comment down below and let me know if the exterior looks of the new Hilux are right up your alley, or whether the current generation looks better. Moving on to practicality and features, the Raider gets a payload of 850 kilograms, and comparatively, the Ford Ranger XLT gets over a ton. The tailgate is also not assisted, so it does feel heavier as well. And this particular unit is of course rubberized, as you can see, which will set you back an extra 4,700 rands. It is also fitted with a manually operated tonneau cover, which will set you back 6,400 rands. This is how the tonneau cover looks from outside. I think it looks quite good, despite not being a roller shutter. The styling bar is also not standard on the Raider and comes in at 11,900 rands. While the tow bar will set you back 9,300 rands. And just out of interest, the 4x2 gets a brake towing capacity of 2.75 tons, while the 4x4 variant gets the full fat 3.5 tons. The nudge bar up front is also a 10,300 rand optional extra. As you can see, in order to get your Raider to look nearly as good as the Legend, you will need to spend a bit more money over the standard Raider. Stepping into the rear, you get a cloth bench that comes with a center armrest and 2 cup holders. You also get ISOFIX anchor points to safely mount your child seat. And speaking of safety, the Hilux gets 7 airbags and a 5-star Euro NCAP rating. Now, NCAP ratings automatically expire after 6 years or when a newer model is introduced into the market, but that doesn't automatically in itself mean that the newer car is unsafe, as long as it carries over all of the safety features as the original model that was tested. As always, I'm 1.78 meters tall or 5'10", and I can just about fit behind my driving position, but it's not massively roomy back here, which is the same across the segment really because of that ladder on frame chassis. Up front, you get manually operated cloth seats once again, but I believe that you now get leather treatment on the final facelift of the Raider. You get decent storage in the cubbyhole. Actually, you get two cubbyholes and a deep storage bin under the armrest that comes with a 220-volt plug. You get an 8-inch infotainment system that comes with wireless Bluetooth connectivity. It also has wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but the only challenge is that you only get one USB Type-A port for the entire car, and I don't have any Type-A cables at home for my phone. However, you do get two 12-volt sockets. But anyway, if you happen to know of any other USB ports secretly stored away somewhere in the car, then comment down below and let us know. Dual zone climate control comes as standard, and you'll be happy to know that it's still operated via physical buttons. The gearbox has a mechanical lock from factory, I believe, which is a necessity for this vehicle, but if there's a Hilux out there without it, it can be fitted aftermarket, and I highly recommend that you do that. You get two cup holders in the center console and another two just in front of the side air vents to keep your drinks cool. The instrument cluster has analog dials, which is very refreshing in this day and age of digital screens. And whilst we're still on the topic of the instrument cluster, claimed fuel consumption is 7.4 liters per 100 kilometers for the 4x2, and this car's lifetime average is 9.1 liters per 100 kilometers over a span of 20,000 kilometers. You get a leather-wrapped multifunction steering wheel, of course, which feels good to the touch. And just out of interest, there's no push to start button on this particular model, unfortunately, but you do get that in the hybrid Raider. And not that it's going to be of any significant benefit apart from being able to change gears manually, the Raider has a sport mode, which to me feels exactly the same as Eco, to be honest. And those are the only two drive modes available for this particular unit. Other highlight features include non-adaptive cruise control, LED headlamps with daytime running lights, a 6-speaker Toyota sound system, not the JBL, and you can head over to my YouTube shorts to find out how that sounds. You also get park distance control in the rear and the front, as well as a reversing camera. The Raider comes with a 3-year 100,000 kilometer warranty and a 9 services 90,000 kilometer service plan with 10,000 kilometer service intervals. The Hilux is also available in 8 paint colors from which to choose, and this particular model is finished in graphite gray metallic, which is one of my favorite Hilux colors, alongside oxide bronze. Before we get to pricing and the cost of ownership, what an incredible run we had this past December, raking in over 400,000 views in a single month. And according to Social Blade, only a handful of South African automotive review channels reached or exceeded that threshold in December. And that is all thanks to you, so I'm truly humbled. And I think that December was just a sneak peek at what's about to come on the channel, because this year is going to be a year of many firsts. Our first year anniversary celebration is coming up next month, which is something I'm looking forward to. And assuming we hit all of the right milestones during the course of this year, it could be the first year that we do giveaways too. I might also start documenting the shortlisting process for the next channel car later this year as well, which will exclusively be consumed by the channel's members when I eventually open the membership. So if you're enjoying these videos, then hit the subscribe button and become a part of the family. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so that you don't miss a single one of our epic reviews. Moving on to pricing and the cost of ownership, there's a plethora of Bakkie types and trim levels from which to choose on the Hilux. You've got single cabs, club cabs or extra cabs, double cabs, and even custom builds, but allow us to just focus on the double cab for now in the interest of time. The range kicks off from 534,000 rands with the petrol 2.7-liter VVTi engine that's mated to a 5-speed manual gearbox. And this configuration used to be quite popular on the Quantum minibus taxis. It gets halogen headlamps, steel rims, and non-color-coded bumpers and door handles. Above that is the 2.4-liter GD-6 SR, and that starts from 578,000 rands, which adds a nicer turbo diesel engine and a 6-speed manual gearbox as opposed to the 5-speed. You can also have this as either a 4x2 or a 4x4. Above those two is the mid-spec Raider, which starts from 724,000 rands all the way up to 885,000 rands, depending on whether you spec it with the 2.4 or 2.8-liter engine, or whether you go for the 4x2 or 4x4 variant, or whether or not you go for the 48-volt mild hybrid system. The unit we're reviewing today is the non-hybrid 2.8-litre 4x2 Raider, which starts from 778,000 rands. But when you factor in the optional extras that we discussed earlier, then this particular one crosses the 820,000 rand mark. Above that is the Legend, which starts from 878,000 rands all the way to 945,000 rands for the same reasons as the Raider, except there's no longer a 2.4-litre variant on the Legend. And finally then, the top spec GR Sport is priced from 1,009,000 rands with the same 2.8-litre engine that you get from the Legend and the Raider, but at a slightly higher state of tune with 15 kilowatts more than those. If we use the Raider as an example, but without all of the optional extras, on finance, it will cost you 14,500 rands a month over 6 years at the current prime interest rate of 10.25% per annum. Insurance is risk profile dependent, and the cheapest quote I got was 2,400 rands. A full tank of diesel will cost you 1,500 rands at the current inland price of diesel for the 80-litre fuel tank. And by the way, I pulled the recommended retail fuel prices from AA, but you might see higher numbers at the pumps, which would then bring your total cost of ownership to 18,500 rands. The question of which Bakkie to go for ultimately boils down to taste and personal needs. Because if you're someone younger, for example, who changes a car every 3 to 5 years before it starts giving serious problems, then you'll probably enjoy the Ranger a little more than you would the Hilux. But if you're someone older who wants to drive a car until the wheels fall off, then the Hilux is second to none. And that is why it's arguably the best Bakkie of all time in this segment. The Chinese have also entered this segment with a bang, but whether or not their products will be as reliable long-term is anybody's guess at this juncture, so it's gonna have to be a bit of a waiting game. But let me know in the comments what Bakkie you would rather get for around 800,000 rands, and let's keep the conversation going. On other matters, the channel's financial year end occurs on 31 December annually, which is not to be confused with the channel's anniversary of February. So that means I'm in the trenches currently, balancing the trial balance and preparing the financial statements. So it might take me a day or 2 or 3 to respond to some of the comments, but I will make a concerted effort to respond to everybody. At the very least, I will acknowledge the comment. Speaking of comments, Ompile wrote to us, and thank you for reaching out to us, Ompile. So he basically mentioned that he wasn't expecting to see a Toyota on the channel, and that is a very important point that he's raising. And so I thought I should address it publicly so that we all have a sense and appreciation of what goes on behind the scenes. And I'm deliberately choosing to do it right at the very end because it's usually the day ones that get to the end of the videos anyway. So I'm actually talking to my day ones right now and nobody else. In reality, there's no car under the sun I'm not willing to review if given the opportunity, because I've reached out to virtually all of the OEMs in South Africa, dealerships included. So if there's a particular automotive brand you're not seeing on the channel, just know that there's some other political shenanigans and gatekeeping happening in the background that has nothing to do with our channel. The only thing we can do on our part is to continue working with the people that actually want to work with us and produce the best automotive content within our abilities. And thank you for playing your part by showing up every single week, commenting, liking, sharing, because all of that has significantly increased our reach in the algorithm to a monthly audience of nearly 200,000 users. OEMs that want to work with us will find us along the way. They've got the channel's email address after all. It's all part of growth really, and we just need to see it through. And that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Until next time, take care.